yesterday's class, what we have done is we have developed this particular simple application with 4 views. Vijita, is it clear to you? Vijita. Hello Vijita, is it clear to you? Is my voice clear and screen is okay? Okay, 1 minute. Okay, let us start today's session. So in the last class yesterday, what we have done is we have created these 4 views. View 1, view 2, view 3 and view 4. So in today's class, I'll try to fetch the data from database.
There are 10 other columns on the call.
In today's class, I'll try to fetch the data from database here. So whenever we fetch the data from database, what we do is, there are 4 steps you need to follow here. Step 1 is, you have to bring data from database to internal table. So that is step 1. Database to internal table, and this can be achieved by using select query. And it's always better you start your main functionality in component controller. So component controller is global, so you start writing your functionality, main functionality in component controller. So that is step 1. So let me go to component controller of yesterday's component. So in this, let us create one node to store the data. So I'm creating this node, something like iTab, and I want to take the fields from something like custom table, ZEMP. In the coming examples, we'll use standard tables also. In today's example, we'll use custom table ZEMP, and I am expecting collection of records, so make it 0 to n. 0 is minimum count, n is maximum count. So this is defined by cardinality. How many records you want to store inside the node is controlled by this cardinality. So I'm choosing add attributes from structure. So you can select your required fields, then you can continue. So node is created now. We use this node for storing the data for temporary purpose. But data should come from database table. So that's the reason why go to methods and create one execute MD. Or you can give something like fetch data, whatever. You can give any name, but I'll try to use like execute MD method here. And in execute method, you need to implement your main functionality. So first of all, you have to write your main functionality here. So the main functionality is we have to implement select query, and moreover we need to assign internal table records to node. The node name is iTab. If the node name is iTab, then internal table becomes LT_iTab. That's a naming convention we follow. Node name is iTab, so our internal table becomes LT_iTab. So don't forget this. So first bring data to internal table, then you bring the data to node. These are the two levels you need to follow, compulsory. So you can bring the data from internal table to node by using bind table method. That's a standard method. It's a standard method. So this method you can generate through wizard. Code wizard will generate this method whenever required if you want to assign internal table records to node. So let me do that here. I'm going to wizard and there is a context and I'm trying to choose iTab. And you can see set plus table. When you use set plus table, so automatically this method is generated. You can see bind table is generated. And in the next class, it's a most important class tomorrow, we are going to understand how these methods should be written by a developer and which method should be used by a developer in which situation. That I'll give clarity in tomorrow's class, but in today's class just understand that this is a bind table and bind table will assign internal table records to node. So as of today, you have to remember this statement, bind table method, and it is generated through wizard with node iTab plus set plus table. These are the steps you need to follow whenever you want to generate this method, bind table. So let me do it again. Wizard, and I'm choosing iTab. You can see set plus table. Set plus table will generate bind table. That's a method. And not only this method, you can see internal table is also available automatically. LT_iTab, that's an internal table in WEBDYNPRO. So what we do is, we'll try to use a direct select query here. Select star from ZDMP into some corresponding fields of table, and you can use your internal table LT_iTab. This is your select query and this is your bind table. So we have implemented this main functionality in component controller. So these two things we have implemented. Now the next step is important, context mapping. So you can maintain context mapping between component controller and view1 controller as well as view2 controller as well as view3 controller, then view4 controller. I mean to say, data from component controller can be transferred to multiple view controllers here through context mapping. So component controller is global, so that's the reason why we transfer data to multiple view controllers. So let us do that now. I'm going to view1. I'm going to view1. So there is a view1 context. So you can drag drop this iTab. This is nothing but context mapping. So when you run the program, data will come from component controller to view1 controller context. This is nothing but context mapping. Similarly, I want to utilize the same data in view2 also. So go to view2 context, drag drop iTab. And similarly, in view3 context, I want to use the same data. So drag drop iTab. And Same data I'm expecting in view 4, so you can use iTab with context mapping. So this is the advantage of component controller. You can see the data and you can share the data wherever required in view 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now let us concentrate on screen designing. So what my requirement is, I want to display view 1 with a table, but it should be non-editable. We should display the data in view 1 table, it should be non-editable. So for that, we have to take table columns as text views. So in view 2, I am expecting same data in table, but it should be editable. So in that case, you have to take table columns as input fields. And in view 3, I am expecting data in form. That means I am expecting selected record in form. In view 4, I am expecting data in graph, something like business graphics. I am expecting data in business graphics, that means in graphical format. So this is my requirement in different views. So let us do that. It's very simple. But whenever you bring the data to view, you have to maintain context binding. Data from view controller will be transferred to view by using context binding. So with context binding, you can design all these things. Form, graph, table, whatever. So screen designing always takes place with context binding. So let me open that here. I'm going to view 1 now. Layout. So let us take one here. You can see there is a wizard. In wizard, I want to select table. And table should get data from context. That is nothing but context binding. That's nothing but context binding. If you select this and you try to choose iTab node, you can choose iTab node, but here you can see table columns. These columns are text views. When you use table columns as text views, then table becomes non-editable. That's the point I was highlighting here. Table columns as text views. Then you'll get all these things. So there's a table. When you run the output, you'll get clarity. I'm just making 10 rows. Now table is created. Let us go to view 2. In view 2, I want to create same table, but it should be editable. That's the only difference. So let us use wizard. There's a table. I'm choosing context, binding, and I'm selecting iTab. But here, you have to make use of input fields because I'm expecting editable formats. Editable format I'm expecting. So this is a point I was highlighting. Table can be editable if you make table columns as input fields. So you'll get the table. You can make something like 10 rows. Okay, let us talk about view 3. In view 3, I'm expecting the form with the selected record. So let us create a form. I'm going to view 3. So in the first class I told you how to create a simple form. The same approach I'm following. First of all, insert a group. Insert a group here. Whenever you create a form, just make layout as matrix. These are the common steps. These are the common steps when you create a form. Now, you can create a form by using wizard again. Wizard. This time you select a form and you can maintain context binding with the same node. If you use same node for form, then selected record will come to form automatically. That's the point. If you bind with same node, selected record will come to form automatically. So I'm selecting the same node, so form fields will be created with label input fields. You can see them. Now, in view 4, let us go to view 4. In view 4, I am expecting data in business graphics. Let us analyze the fields available in this I tab. You can see I tab contains name column and salary column. There are 2 columns here. In I tab node, so what we do is, when you want business graphics, you have to utilize these properties. I gave the properties in your notes. In 3rd class, you can please open those properties and you can verify these things. Business graphics means main property, series source. So, series source is the main property, and for main property you can bind with I tab node. And every graph contains x-axis. X-axis is designed by using category. X-axis is designed by using category. So you can make use of description property. So in x-axis, I am expecting names of I tab. I tab, when you run the program, node contains collection of records. So those names of I tab, I want to display in x-axis. Similarly, you can use y-axis with simple series, and it contains value property. So you can display something like itab hyphen salary. I want to display salary of employees in y-axis. So you can assign that particular column. So according to this one, x-axis will display names, y-axis will display salary per month, and common node is itab. So this is the approach you need to follow. Common node will be itab. So let me do that here. Even in your real-time scenarios, these properties are same. Series source, description, value, these properties are standard properties. So let me go to this one, and you can see there is a root. You can right click, insert element, and choose business graphics. mention, this is very simple one. But the important property is series source. There is a series source property, so there is a binding symbol also available here. Series source, there is a binding, so you can bind with a node. Binding means assigning the node. So now there is a binding maintained here between series source and iTab. This is what we have done. Now let us concentrate on x-axis. We use category. You can right click here, insert category, and category contains description property. Category contains description property, so you can bind with one of the columns, say for example name. So names will be displayed in x-axis because of this binding. So this is what we have done. Category, description, bind with name column. Now let us concentrate on y-axis with simple series. So you can right click, insert series, and choose simple series. And simple series contains value property here. There is a value property, so you can maintain binding with salary per month. Any integer column you can use for y-axis. So I am selecting this. And you can increase the width and height of this graph. Width, height you can easily increase. Now this is what we have done. View 1, View 2, View 3, View 4. But in this scenario, all views are getting data from component controller. So that's the advantage of component controller. It transfers data to multiple views. So don't forget this basic point. So now let us run this once. I'm activating, let us test it. Let us test it. So now there is a view 1. There is a view 1 and you can see there is view 2. On view 4 there is a graph here. But if you closely observe, there is no data that is displayed here. Data is not displayed. So what we try to do is, we'll try to display the data by calling our main functionality, and our main functionality is under component controller execute method. We have created a method, we have written the logic, but this method is not triggered under any action. So this execute method is part of component controller, but we did not trigger this method. We have just written select query and bind table. So what I'll try to do is, in view 1, I'll create one button. I'll create one button with some action. So let me go to that. So insert element as button. For this button, provide text, say for example, get data. And let us create one action, that is get data. So in this action, you need to trigger your execute method. So our execute method is written in component controller, so you have to use this reference. In real time also, you have to use the same reference whenever you refer component controller. WDCOMP controller is a standard reference. It is used to refer component controller. Remember that in your coding, whenever you want to refer component controller, you can use this particular reference. After referring that, then you can call your method that is created in component controller. So when you call execute method here, it will execute select query to fetch the data. That's the reason why we are calling that method here. It will internally execute select query. So let me test it. Now you can see there is a button along with table. When I click on get data button, you can see the data now. But this data is non-editable. If you go to second screen, the data is editable. User can modify here. User can modify. But how to send it to database, I'll cover mostly in the next class. And as of now, selected record we are displaying in form. Whichever record is selected here, we are displaying in form. You can see that. And if you go to fourth view is displaying data in graph. This is nothing but business graphics. So in this example, the data is transferred to all these views via component controller. That's the point I want to explain from this example up to now. Not only this, you can also make use of these options. We have done up to business graphics. But not only business graphics, we can also make use of all these screen elements. Say for example, in fourth view, I want to use some drop downs, checkbox, radio buttons, etc. I just want to introduce that. So in fourth view, I want to use drop down by index. It's a screen element, but it contains one property, that is text property. And whichever values you want to display, you can bind with that particular column. So context binding has to be maintained to display specific column values in drop down. So here there is a context binding. Here also there is a context binding with business graphics. And if you want to use radio button group by index, so I gave the properties in your notes. So according to those properties, text property is important property. So you maintain context binding with one of the columns. Say for example, I tab, I want to display IDs. So here I want to display IDs in radio button. So you can maintain binding with that column. Now, not only that, you can also use checkbox group. You can also use checkbox group, but checkbox group also contains text property. So